how I define the goddess is a divine, sovereign being here as the infinite field of possibility in feminine form.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast where I interview space holders from all over the world. I'm your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the connection catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Alexandra Joy Smith, the intuitive guide and the spiritual mentor. Welcome to the show, Alexandra. How are you doing?
My soul is well. My soul is well.
Your soul as well. I love it. And all as well as well. That's really, really cool. We just
Yeah.
took a breath together, and I feel way more grounded now,
Mm.
although I'm always like very excited. And I feel like now I'm quite balanced between the excitement of talking to you and the groundedness that the breath has brought us. So that's pretty, pretty cool. Thank you so much for guiding this beautiful breath work before we started. It was really nice. And yeah, I would love to
Mm.
start with a little bit of your backstory. I'm really curious, how did you start your spiritual journey and what has inspired you to be the intuitive guide and spiritual mentor and to work with women to really help them embody the inner goddess?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have? So I pause because I'm in the giant pause of that moment in between the inhale and the exhale where, there's no thing. Because when I can give you my story, which I'll do, and I just want to be present to that pause, which is, just, I don't know, like there's such an I don't know energy of innocence to bring to the answer to that question. I have done 40 plus years of what I call sacred journey, woman exploration, fractaling my being to remember, where I am from, who I am. And I think it transforms all the time. It changes all the time in terms of my remembrance of myself as a multidimensional being. My story is that I had my share of opportunities for growth as a child, wounded as a big soul, of which ours are made from, uh, the big soulness. Um, yeah, I had a lot of moving around, a lot of, in kind of attachment theory, I would say I had too much right to separate instead of belong. I was very independent. I moved to New York City when I was 18. I moved kind of out of the house when I was 16. Really, I was going to make it in reaction to uh, kind of my family structure that didn't have its ship together. Ship is what I say to my kids instead of the T, and that with the T. And then, later in life, as we do, I realized that it was the perfect environment for me to be, for my soul to have chosen. And I'm not talking about being positive about what happened. I'm talking about getting contextually that I chose that journey very early on so that I could anchor particular parts of my personality in a way that could bring through the level of, this is going to sound arrogant, so I want to unpack this later, but access that I have, cosmic access to the multidimensionality. But I wouldn't have said that 40 years ago. 40 years ago, I was just sitting in a workshop in a hotel room. It was called the Southgate Hotel. I actually remember on, I think, 7th Avenue, across from Penn Station, where I was doing that more masculine methodology work born out of the West, in the West. And, God, what I call awakening isn't what usually people call awakening. I just got that I wasn't the conversation in my head. And I got moved from victim to, life happens for me and creatorship in that moment. And that transformed the trajectory of the rest of my life. And that was like when I was 17. in that, I was going to make it in the world time, which a lot of us back then, way back then, I call it, we were the heavy lifters for kind of the beautiful um, generation you're in, which is, you get to like walk into what I call the spirit, transpo spirit world, and it not feel so weird for you, though, it's different than the majority of the world, but there's enough people on the planet now in these pockets of quote unquote what people call awakening. I just call it, they get there, not the conversation in their head, and that they have some creatorship and life is happening for them, not to them. Um, so yeah, I have done, as I think you mentioned, before we got on camera, uh, you know, a lot of play. I don't call it work, but a lot of play on myself to be where I am today, which is this portal for the goddess realm. And we can unpack what that even means, because most people, I've had people say to me, I don't even know what that means. That doesn't even resonate. Well, when I was speaking the world of transformation back in the early 90s, no one knew what the heck I was talking about either. So I'm kind of used to people looking at me as if, I have five heads, like, what is she talking about? I tend to, that's just my dharma. That doesn't make me better than or worse than. Sometimes it's like really painful, right? Like I can see into, and again, it's not my identity, it's who I came here to be, is a vessel for that which is moving through to bring us forward as humanity. We are here to expand. Yes, love is the highest vibration, and so is expansion inside that love, being inside the heart. We are always, we are heart centered, yet we have to respect the beauty of the higher mind and its draw towards bringing forth that which is expansion. The if you read any of the definitions of the morphogenic field and Richard Sheldrake's work on the morphogenic field, like the acorn seed wants to become the acorn tree. The rose, once the rose seed, the rose bulb wants to become the rose bush. And that's what's beautiful about being here in this, I call it whatever this gig is called, being in this, on this earth. I'm sure there's other planets where it's called something else, but here, this is our gig. So we're here to expand and grow, and to, it's not just dropping the mind as like, oh, that's just the identity. I mean, there's a lot of that, this speak, I call it, in the, what do I call it, like the Instagram spiritual mumbo jumbo world. It's like, oh, identity bad, ego bad. But when you actually live anything in polarity like that and hold it at bay, like identity, ego, bad, which based, and those are all phenomena that are based in the construct of a mind, the mind. It has you, it has you. So to be with reverence in that all parts of ourselves, all parts of self, including the higher mind, are here for a reason. They are here in us for a reason. How do we know? Because they're here. It's not that complicated. So to work within the bounds and understanding the context of what drives our souls to arise within us as the human beings that we are, to me, is the point. So I've been in this journey, getting certified, trained, psych degree, all sorts of ways to come at, uh, be not just understanding, because again, that's the booby prize, being spirit here, having a spiritual experience. So there's a lot we could unpack around all that. So I just took about 10 minutes to explain one question. So I'll stop speaking now.
That's perfect. That's perfect because I loved everything that you shared. And yeah, work that you use. I agree. Like we are here having this gig, and I love that you don't use the word play because I feel like it's so cool
Oh,
that you're using
always.
this
Yeah.
word. So that's amazing. Like it's so much more encode in our collective consciousness, this word play, we are opening up to it. To the word work, we sometimes close. I mean, depends on what work means for you. But if you're gonna be enlightened again, thank you so much for sharing.
Well, all you have to do is watch a child.
Absolutely. And then, because it's all about coming back to our child self, it's all about being in joy in every moment of our life. So, absolutely. And to express all these emotions as they go, as children do. And so, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And so, you are a mentor for women to embody the goddess. And I would like to know, what is the definition for you, or what does it mean for you to be a goddess or to embody the goddess here on earth?
So thank you for asking that question, because that is my soul's, it's beyond purpose. It's my divine assignment, to bring this, I'll say it with like a mental definition, to bring the definition forward, but it's also, it's an energy that can't be defined. But let me do the words first, because the words are the tools for our higher mind to express itself. So there's nothing wrong with words. It's just recognize, what dimension you're speaking from versus being. It's hard to explain a sunset in the presence of a sunset, right? So I'm going to explain it as if I'm trying to explain a sunset. But when you're in the presence of it, in the being of the goddess, no explanation needed. It's just like, it's just an integration of being. So, and how I define the goddess is a divine, sovereign being here as the infinite field of possibility in feminine form. And that was a choice as a soul made in what I call the crystal cave prior to coming into this density, into this form, into this human, beautiful, skin bag self. So I live from that was our choice from as a soul, because you got some choices, right? Like in this polarity, you could have come as a dude, yet in the model that I play with, it's a soul choice. So embodying the goddess here as the divine sovereign being, here as the infinite field of possibility, having a human experience, or what I call a spiritual experience, because to me being human is a spiritual experience, in feminine form. And the embodiment of her is about being in the body. So now we can unpack it in so many different ways. We can look at the brain, right? There's the left side of the brain and the right side. One is feminine, one is masculine. There are bioenergetics teachers that I study with, and the left side of the body is feminine, the right side is masculine. There's so many ways I can unpack this, but it's basically shifting from a zeitgeist or a cultural consciousness point of view. We have revered the divine masculine. We have revered the masculine side of being, the right side, the left brain, because if you know about this, you know that it's the left brain that it's a diagonal, has the right side function. So it's the right side that has led historically for about 5,000 years. I mean, we could unpack that too, but that would take about 4 hours. That would take, one of my You Are Goddess Gateway weekends to unpack. But so to bring forth the goddess is to really energetically bring forth wiring and firing, not just in yourself. You got to start with you, because you are the universe. And it's a wiring. My intention in divine assignment is that I stand in this space called the womb, this womb-like space, to hold this as a shift in the cultural consciousness. So the Dalai Lama has quoted to say, you probably heard this quote a zillion times, it's the Western woman who's going to heal the world. I assert this is what he means. I'm arrogant enough to actually add on that it's our divine feminine, and by the way, divine feminine, divine masculine are energies, and they exist in you as a male or female. Yet, if you came as a soul deciding to come into feminine form, it's more on you. It's more on you as an accountability, not responsibility, because it's a very masculine term, an accountability, because when you bring her forth in you, the goddess essence, it's the most accountable act. So when I speak and point to the goddess, you follow me so far? Because I'm gonna up level it a little. It's not just so it's about being in the body, okay? And what is more a creative, what is more feminine and a creative act than being in the body, in our wombs? The wombs, the dark space, as in the dark space of the womb, not dark bad, like as it is dark space in there, holds the creation of a life, right? I always cracks me up. I'm always like, you know, when the aliens do come down and we see this, like they watch like this form of this, like watch you, this like goddess form, and all of a sudden her belly starts growing and something comes out of her. Like, I think it would freak an alien out. I'm sure they have their own version of that, but like, we just make normal the most incredible act of creation. That's I can't even speak to it, but I can feel it in your body, right? Like I can feel the soul bumps just in like presencing. Like, we bear life. So being in the body, in by and in the womb, is by definition being in creatorship. So to own that as the goddess you are, is kind of like, I don't do steps, I don't do strategies. That's very masculine, but it's kind of code one. It's like a key code. You got to own the creator that you are. And how do I know you are? Because you can create a life, whether you choose to or not. That's a matter of free will, but you can. And what bore the universe was an energy of creatorship. We go to dark matter, and that that big bang theory, and you watch it goes from dark to light, and light explodes. So light, the sun, that is the masculine. The dark matter, mother earth, the womb, that is the feminine. So living in your body, getting key coded from the experience of sensations versus getting key coded from thoughts that create the illusion, the Maya of experience. Now, even this, the way I put my hands here and I say the words thoughts as if they come from here, that's a misnomer. We don't know where the mind exists. In fact, in bioenergetics, the mind is in the lower mind is actually comes online in the solar plexus. We don't know. We know there's a brain there, and we know that when you have certain thoughts, things get light up and things get dark, like in brain function, if you were to do a scan. But ultimately, we don't even know where the mind actually resides. If you talk to people who are really geek out on this, like a Dan Siegel, uh, love his work, he will say the mind lives in the space between. The mind doesn't actually even reside in your physical form. So as we shift from this 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 paradigm of thinking that the mind is that which leads us, and start embodying that we are physical sensations here having a mind. Like Einstein said, the biggest illusion is that we are a mind who has intuition, when the whole thing needs to shift. We are intuition that can have a mind. So when we shift into our bodies as the source of who we are, not as reaction, but as sourceful coding, that is the goddess. And once you're in body, you can actually have access to what I call the goddess essence, the goddess realm. And those are ancient archetypes. Joseph Campbell talked to them. It's what a lot of Jungian work is about. Carl Jung is actually tuning into archetypes, the archetypes which then lead your energy system. And by archetypes, many religious structures like Hinduism, that's not a new thing to many ancient religions. Archetypes, we act now like, because you're kind of starting to see it more. I've been talking about the archetypal realm now for about 3 years in my play in the world and what I'm putting out, but you can see it more and more. So it's not just something to like talk about as a new, what I call transfo spirit, like thing to transact about. It's actually when you tune into the archetypal level of consciousness, you are fueled by a new source of energy. The mind has its own energy system, dopamine, adrenaline. It seeks certain level of existence based in survivorship, based in a reaction to childhood wounds. And then it creates this identity that then has a life, and so on and so on and so on. And when the quote unquote awakening happens, or you get that you're not the story inside your head, or you're not that level of consciousness, this whole other realm can open up. But here's the thing, the whole other realm can open up. And if you actually aren't embodied, which I wasn't for years, I did all the methodologies based in not good, not bad. It's just a lot of the original transformational methodologies and spirituality was based in more male modeling, whether it be neurolinguistic programming, the work of Landmark, which I did tons of. I studied with Osho's teachers. I've, bioenergetics. I can't, the list goes on and on. If you want to look at what I've done, go to my website. But what I realized when I got more into, actually, I just think I was ready to get that I was like full of ship. Replace the P with the T, meaning that I had gotten it all in my mind, in my head, but I hadn't gotten it in my body yet. And I was a yoga practitioner for 20 years. I was an athlete. I started in the fitness industry before there was a fitness industry, but I was like split. Like I hadn't done the crossover and while I'm doing my hands like this, because there's the superhighway between the left and the right side of the brain, the corpus callosum is responsible for this. I hadn't crossed over and unified both worlds because I was so in reaction to my mother's pain. And I didn't want to be her. So usually our relationship to the divine feminine is sourced from a relationship with our mothers. And it's not your mother, yet you chose your mother, the good, the bad, the blissful, or the painful, because it's like your earth school for the mother. So when I got that, it totally transformed my relationship with the mother. I was like, wow, like I created a lot of like a PhD program on my earth school lessons about the mother with my mother. And when I got that, I actually could be in full love and integration. Like my heart just went, actually I just saw her last week. And she's on her tail end of consciousness. And, but my love for her is just the love of the mother. And I'm a mother now, which is also, well, I've been a mother for almost 18 years now. To go through it yourself, you get it. Like you get it. Like I had to get through the experience. So embodiment is like how I started this whole answer a billion minutes ago. That embodiment is the experience. Embodiment is being present to the sunset. It's being present to your stunning glowing eyes and face right now, who is feeding your listening is feeding me into creating more of my divine assignment through the tool of language. Like we're like dancing in the most delicious way. It's like intimacy that is of the divine nature of the feminine versus and embodied versus, which by the way totally feels different in the body. If I was answering you from my mind right now, though I'm sounding a little heady, so I'm moving in and out of the mind. But with you, I've seen some of your other interviews, what you do is your presence brings forth, which is a very divine feminine phenomena, someone else's presence to speak into the now, like the
Yes.
presence of the sunset. Does that make sense? Like you can't think about an orgasm. You know what I mean? Like if you're thinking about the orgasm, you're probably
Yeah.
not in the pleasure of the orgasm. You're in the pleasure, you're in the intimacy. So the goddess realm, and I promise you, because I have some time on the road. As I said, I started in the fitness industry. It was not an industry. People used to ask me. I used to walk up and down Park Avenue, going into the most beautiful apartments probably on the planet, working with women, and people would ask me what I do. I was like, well, I'm a personal trainer. People would be like, well, are you from California? Like people had no idea what I was doing. Fitness wasn't even a thing back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I have some time on the road of watching, you know, the rising of industries, the rising of conversations, the shifting of conversations. We are at this beautiful place of what people are calling awakening, and there's lots of plant medicine going on, all these things that are doing that. Lots of people going to Costa Rica, Bali. I giggle because I'm like, it's either Bali, Costa Rica, or Tulum, where people have to go vortextually to be awakened, And the truth is, you can be, some of the most transformed, enlightened people I've ever met are doormen and doorwomen in New York City. Like, it doesn't have to look a certain way. You can be wherever you are with this presence and bring it forth. You can work at Starbucks or whatever and be the space. It doesn't have to be on the beach somewhere, even though I love beaches and I love traveling to these places. But I just want to disabuse of the concept that it has to be, it's outside of ourselves. It's not based on where we are, it's based on who we are, right? So in terms of the goddess realm, we will start seeing more archetypal conversation come through. And what the Sacred Feminine Guiding Institute that just arose through me as something to bring forth. And I'm at the very early stages of communing with what it is and bringing it forth by the You Are Goddess, creating the You Are Goddess journey, is bringing forth it's not a new way. What I call it is it's using ancient technologies from the future. This way of this to use words, actually not a way. It's like portaling. It's this methodology, not even methodology. Portal. See, I'm still finding the language. It's portaling with women in a way that you're guiding versus coaching. Guiding shoulder to shoulder versus, psychologizing, therapizing. Like, it's not opposite. And if you know anything about the male versus female, it's like females love to be in interaction. Males actually love to be shoulder to shoulder. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the therapeutic model and coaching are pretty much born from a masculine energy. And guiding is, in my play, and the way it's coding through me is providing a womb like energy to another woman so that she is, and I do a lot of work with energy centers, that she is landed, grounded in the 10th energy center, which is 2 feet below the feet, like here. A lot of people talk about you're not grounded, but they forget about that it's actually not just in the root, it's actually in the earth, 2 feet below the feet. So through the 10th energy center, safety and belonging through the root, a permission to feel and experience, because everything that we experience from a sensory perspective happens in the sacral, in the gut, right? And that we have our own sense of personal power that comes online as that deliciously distinct ray of the sun that we are. We're all part of the sun, but we all have our distinct, unique ray that we chose to come and embody, and then to be, in that assemblage point of the heart where everything unites, so that we can actually speak from our creative expression and self. It's more than just having your voice, it's having the voice move through you. Then there's, the connection to seeing. Some people are more connected here. I landed in my 6th chakra, so I'm a seer. Not everybody landed here. We're obsessed, a little obsessed right now in the transpo spiritual junkie community with like the 6th and 7th chakra, forgetting about everything that's below that in terms of chakras and energy center. But yeah, so that there's a permission to see and trust what that scene is, and then to connect. And then, there's 5 other energy centers to play with, except they're outside of the bottle and they're subtle energy realms, which, by the way, is who we are, much more than actually who we become is more fed from these 5 outer energy centers than the inner, but we need to have it's the kundalini energy. Like we need to have both flowing together, or the DNA strand. They work in conjunction. And so when we are hooked up inside the goddess that we are, it actually goes like this or like this. We are grounded in here in our 10th energy center through our feet. We are here fully having a spiritual experience as the breath of spirit moves through us, alchemizing below our feet. Then our life force comes out, generates this what is considered. I mean, most people know this term now, some don't, but it's just think of the toric field, which is like a fountain of energy moving out of you. So wow, I just gave you a long explanation of goddess, but it's the integration of both. Yet we have lived so many years in the divine masculine, and I don't mean to use my fingers, because I think what's dangerous is when we point out and we say, divine masculine. We have to look at the thumb, not the index finger, because it's where the masculine and the feminine is not. By the way, it's not masculine feminine. It's where the divine masculine, divine feminine is not integrated within. But so many of us have been one-sided for so long, and look at the educational system. I have a daughter, everything is based in um, rewarding what you know, how you're doing, how you do it, how good you do it. And it's the imbalance. Like we don't have to do anything, by the way. I have no agenda, even though it sounds I'm agenda filled. I'm just holding the space. If people come, they come. All I can do is inside of me be it, and then speak from what I call her, or my relationship to my access. Any agenda is more of a masculine phenomena, right? That's more of a mind phenomena. So who I am is the being of the goddess. And by the way, just to go back to the original question about an hour ago, when I say goddess, I do not mean what you're seeing on social media or in other places, like, oh, you're such a goddess, oh, you're such a queen. That's not what I'm pointing to. I'm actually pointing to bandwidths of energy. And the bandwidth of energy that's possible now for us, that's coming through for many of us, is a new energy source based in the divine feminine, based in the archetypes uh, of goddess, which for me, when I look into your field, I can see a lot of priestess, a lot of, even though I know you're like this creator, but I bet if you spend too much time in a city, you start actually feeling weak, like exhausted. Like you probably have to get back out into the jungle, or into the land. It's really forest and jungle more than just open land. To feed, that's a very priestess archetype, where you feed your soul and then you come back into the city fed. But if you stay too long in like this very masculine structures, I'm sure you get depleted. So returning to so that's a very priestess, but there's there's and Isis was the ultimate priestess. So we could totally unpack that, but it's just fun. It's a realm to be fun. I don't need all to be all serious about it too, because it's play. Like to discover your this new energy source, because it's one of the cosmic principles or laws that I guide from, is that we're always looking for an energy source. We are energy source uh, missiles. So we're always looking for an energy source, and it's the higher mind gets to choose. You can either go from survivorship, what your identity has decided based in its beautiful way to have you survive, or thrivership, which is a creative, creatress, sorceress, co-created, felt sensations in the body into phenomena. And that's my play in the world, is creating that awareness for people, for women in particular, and bringing forth all the content to make it make sense to your mind. Because if you don't make it make sense to your mind will reject it. The mind will reject it, because it doesn't know what it doesn't know. So you have to make, that's why people are so, especially in this space, cite the research all the time. Well, the research says, well, why they're saying that is because what it actually does is click into your beautiful mind that, oh, that must be valid. So I can relax.
Hmm.
I can relax and believe this because there's research. But if you've done any with the hilarity about the whole thing is that when someone says that, they're employing what the masculine side of the mind needs, because research, as and if you've studied any of the quantum sciences, quantum physics, you know that a researcher always is impacting the results of the experiment. You find what you're looking for. So it's kind of the dog chasing its tail. It's like, yeah, there's research, and the researcher has an agenda, because where you put your energy matters. So, just when you believe something because there's research behind it, just always have a moment of like, huh, just remember whoever did that research also was looking for what they found.
That was a beautiful explanation of the goddess. Thank you so much. I really, really vibe with everything that you said. And I feel like it's important not only for women to actually embody the goddess within, it's also important for men, maybe sometimes even more so than for women, because men are so suppressed in their feminine energy and they don't express emotions, they are not in their bodies. And I feel like it's a message actually for everyone, not only for for people in female bodies, because yeah, we just suppressed it for so long that now when we get it out of us, like the goddess energy and also the divine healthy masculine energy, that's where we feel filled up with the, because we get this energy from both of the sources, divine feminine, divine masculine, and this is how we feel complete, how we feel filled up with the energies of the cosmos, with the creative energies of the cosmos, because they are both creative energies, like the space, the feminine darkness, where the masculine light is coming and is just creating. Yeah,
Is the
it's
space.
just
Yes.
creating, and it's beautiful.
Well, and it goes, that's, that's energy meeting dark matter, which creates the universe, right? But one of the things that you said, I just want to unpack for a moment. I do not stand in that men's feminine is being suppressed. I stand in that their masculine is being suppressed, because women have gone so much towards living our masculine, and in the polarity that has to push our male counterparts into their feminine, because we're taking over so much of the masculine energy, because we're getting revered for it and rewarded for it. I mean, to say it really simple, it's like men aren't allowed to be men. So the more that we actually own the divine feminine, and what I mean by that is, look at some of my stuff. I mean, look at not just my stuff. There's so much out there. It's how are we functioning day to day? What are our morning rituals? How do we go about our work day? Are we more in our breath and attuned, or are we in an adrenaline focused calendar schedule, and everything has to be a certain way? Like, find in yourself where your masculine lies. And if you can't find that online somewhere, you can go to my website. I mean, that stuff is everywhere. So, and then once you kind of like bring forth, and I would say fundamentally, if you were to ask me, well, okay, you just said a lot, boil it down, could you? I'd be like, you know what fundamentally is, which is certainly my journey daily, walking in trust and faith. Just start there. Life is for you. That little statement, if you can code that as in every energy center in your being, life is for me, and I am walking in trust and faith, that in and of itself is the goddess at play. And I remember three pregnancies that I've had, and it was all that. Like, I didn't look down and say, okay, now it's time to grow the fingernail on the right index finger. Okay, grow that now. It wasn't in my it wasn't in my calendar. I didn't send myself a notification to remind me. I had to prepare my vessel. I had to do some, in the divine masculine way, beautiful preparation for the vessel to stand inside, my being, to be ready, the womb to be ready. But then literally it was just moment to moment. And I have never walked so in trust and faith because you have no choice. You can't. It's like the one thing, as a woman, you can't control it, and you can try, and people have tried, but it's so. I just remember how delicious that whole space felt. So where if you got to where the root of a lot of what now that if you haven't been pregnant, no problem. You can actually create that in your being right now, right here, as the goddess you are. It doesn't just have to be pregnancy because if anything's available to us, it's always available to us. And that, if I could, I just try to kind of like simplify it so that your beautiful listeners have something to walk away with and walk into, is walking with faith and trust is a fundamental divine feminine key code. It's a key code. And by the way, probably one of the hardest ones, not as a belief, but we have beautiful minds that don't necessarily believe that. And this goes beyond polarity, it goes beyond belief. It goes into a realm of absolute truth. And when you click into that, because it's a frequency, when you click into that frequency, life starts unfolding in beautiful ways. I actually have this from a gateway weekend I just ran. It's on my flip chart next to me. Miracles are when you ask the universe what it wants and then ask how you can serve it, which was Marianne Williamson. And that's a life filled with miracles, or life that's not just filling a life with miracle. That is life, living life as the miracle that it
Oh,
is.
this is so beautiful. I'm so, so grateful for everything that you shared. And it's landing so much that I feel like I just want to leave all the listeners with that and just let it integrate and process in their consciousness, because I can feel that your words are not only words, they actually bring the energy. Like I can feel it inside of my body. So I'm really, really grateful for everything that you shared. So maybe I'm just gonna ask one last question so that people could find you somewhere. What's the best way to check out what you're doing, your programs and your content? What's the best way to find you and to know more?
So my website's alexandrajoysmith.com. And what I would be most interested before everybody's searching out there for everything. It's all like this splat on, we live in this spirit info, this transfo info, transformation info stage. Before you even go to my website, I would just ask that if any of this resonated, fine, breathe, because the breath work is not just another thing to do that's now out there to sell by coaches. It's actually bringing spirit through you, and take a moment and see and feel and experience in your body what we just present, the portal that you opened for us and for inviting me into to like codify. So like we're doing so much searching. So yes, I would love for you to go to my website. I would love for you to play, and maybe one day be with I'll be blessed enough to be with some of your listeners, and I look forward to that. And I want our our sisters and brothers, but again, I work with our sisters, I play with our sisters, to find it within themselves first. So if whatever I said, or whatever we present ignites anything, go into those sensations, find where they in your body, and get really interested, bring breath into it, and then
Mhm.
go to my website. But I just don't want to deflect. We're just doing so much searching out there and transacting, and we're 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 actually creating more duality in this industry. There's still no name for this industry, um, than we even realize. So my request: go in first, breathe, find any of what I said, what we presenced in your body first, and then do some searching. And I would love to, if I resonate, or the play resonates, yeah, we'll be together.
Wow, I just love the way that you speak. It's just so embodied and flowing and from divine and feminine goddess. I can really feel it. So thank you so much for sharing your energy. I feel like just even sitting with you in your energy brings a lot for me specifically, and I'm sure for our listeners too. So thank you so, so much for agreeing to be on this podcast.
I'm in such grace and appreciation for your magnificent soul and who you are here being, bringing all this through you. So if you ever want to commune around anything, I am open, available with my Kuan Yin and Green Tara, who are behind me on my altar. Um, yeah, here holding our space as well.
Thank you so much.